Before this story begins, take a moment to subscribe, like, and share this video, because what you are about to hear is not just a romance, it is a reckoning. Now listen closely. Some betrayals do not destroy a woman, they awaken her. Some wounds do not weaken her. They become the fire she walks back into the world with. She was the girl they mocked. No husband yet, they sneered. They thought she would stay small, silent, forgotten. But destiny is not gentle with those who underestimate the wrong woman. Because when she returned to London, she did not come back alone. She came back with a secret powerful enough to shatter the social order, a truth that would set every ballroom whisper ablaze. The most feared duke in England was already hers. Not in rumor, not in fantasy, but in a marriage sealed in shadows, bound by fire, and destined to change everything they thought they knew. This is not a tale of a woman saved. This is the tale of a woman who rises and of a man strong enough to rise with her. Prepare yourself. London is about to burn. And it all begins now. Chapter 1. The Wound. The morning of Eleanor Blythe's greatest humiliation began with rain thin, cold, and persistent. Like London itself was determined to wash her away. She stood at the edge of Lady Harrowgate's ballroom, gloved fingers pressed to the small embroidered reticule she clutched to her waist. The murmurs around her floated like perfume sweet on the surface, poison beneath. Still no prospects? A young lady whispered too loudly. I heard even her stepmother refuses to sponsor her further, another replied. Imagine reaching 22 with no husband. A tragic inconvenience. The words stung, not because they were new, but because they were familiar. They had followed Eleanor through the years, like a shadow she could never outrun. Ever since her father died, and her inheritance mysteriously vanished under her stepmother's careful hands, Eleanor had been treated like an elegant charity case, tolerated, pitied, underestimated. No husband, no dowry, no future. In society's eyes, she was a ghost wearing silk. She lifted her chin, refusing to let the burn behind her eyes become tears. Let them think her weak. Let them whisper. The day would come when they would choke on their own cruelty. But it was difficult standing alone beneath chandeliers, surrounded by beauty and music, feeling as if every violinist could sense the crack in her composure. Her stepsister, Clarissa, swept toward her with the grace of a cat who had found a cornered mouse. Eleanor, dear, she purred, do at least pretend you are enjoying yourself. One might think you are sulking. I am perfectly content, Eleanor replied evenly. Clarissa's smile sharpened. Are you? With so many eyes watching you stand alone, people will begin to assume, well, that no gentleman finds you desirable. The words were a dagger dipped in honey. Eleanor forced a breath. Who others find desirable is no concern of yours. Oh, but it is, Clarissa said sweetly. Because your presence reflects on our family, it becomes embarrassing when people assume you are unmarriageable. Eleanor's nails dug into her gloves. Before she could respond, the music shifted. The orchestra slid into a bold, commanding waltz. A ripple moved through the ballroom, heads turning, whispers rising. And then the double doors opened. Entered the Duke of Ravenscar, tall, dark, impossibly composed. His black coat was cut with merciless precision, his hair gleaming like obsidian under the chandeliers. His reputation arrived ahead of him, the man rumored to be ruthless in Parliament, untouchable in business, and devastating in person. Eleanor felt her breath falter. Not because she knew him, but because she had once met him years ago, briefly, innocently, unaware he was anything more than a courtly stranger offering directions in a gallery. She remembered his eyes, sharp, searching, almost wounded. Now those same eyes swept the ballroom with imperial coolness until they landed on her. A pause, a shift in the air. Something in his expression flickered recognition, perhaps, or something more dangerous, Clarissa noticed. Her face brightened with greedy hope. The Duke, she breathed. Watch closely, Eleanor. Perhaps he shall choose me for a dance. But the Duke was walking cutting through the crowd, and every step was directed toward Eleanor. She froze. Her heart hammered so loudly she feared the entire ballroom could hear it. He stopped before her, bowed with immaculate precision, and extended a gloved hand. Miss Blythe, he said, voice deep and velvet, dark. I have waited long enough. Will you grant me this dance? Gasps burst around them. Clarissa stiffened in disbelief. Eleanor's lips parted, but no sound emerged. She should decline. She should flee. She should not attract attention. Attention led to cruelty. Yet something in the Duke's gaze anchored her. There was no mockery there, only intensity, purpose, and something else she could not name. She placed her hand in his. The room trembled. He led her into the center of the floor. The music swelled. And when his hand settled against her waist, something inside her, long locked, long buried, began to thaw. "You should not draw notice to yourself on my behalf," she whispered. A faint, unreadable smile touched his lips. "You underestimate the effect you have on me." Her pulse jolted. "We have hardly spoken." "Not with words," he murmured. "But some conversations do not require them." Heat rose in her cheeks. Around them, whispers sharpened like blades. "The Duke? With her? She has no dowry, no status. Why would he choose her? Because he sees what you pretend not to see. Because your worth is not dependent on those who diminished you." But Eleanor did not believe such things, not yet. The waltz turned, sweeping them closer. She felt his heartbeat through the layers of fabric. Calm, steady, commanding. "Miss Blythe," he said softly, "you look as if you expect the world to collapse." "Experience has taught me to expect little," she replied. His jaw tightened, as if the confession struck him. "Then perhaps," he murmured, "it is time the world proves you wrong." When the music faded, he did not release her immediately. Neither moved, neither breathed. The air between them was a live wire. Then he bowed, his voice a whisper meant for her alone. "This will not be our last dance." Eleanor's heart twisted painfully. Fear, hope, longing she had no right to feel. She stepped back, and Clarissa swooped in, voice loud and poisonous. "Well, Eleanor," she announced, "still no husband yet, but at least you have managed a single dance." The crowd laughed. The old wound reopened. Eleanor turned away, but before she could escape, she heard the Duke's voice, low, lethal, unmistakably defending her. "You mock her," he said, "because you cannot match her." A hush crashed down. Clarissa pallid. But Eleanor walked out of the ballroom anyway, heart trembling, wounded pride burning, unaware that the Duke would not let this be the end. She did not know yet that this night was the beginning of a story that would turn London upside down. Chapter 2. Return and Collision. 3 days after the Harrogate ball, Eleanor Blythe left London. Not dramatically, not in disgrace, not because society mocked her. Society always mocked her. She left because something inside her had cracked open during that waltz with the Duke of Ravenscar, and she did not know how to hold the pieces steady. She felt seen, and being seen was dangerous. So she wrapped her shawl tightly, boarded the carriage bound for her aunt's quiet estate in Surrey, and told herself she would never again think of the man whose touch had awakened something unbearably hopeful. She did not know he would follow her, a return she did not expect. A fortnight later, Eleanor's aunt pressed a letter into her hand, delivered by a royal courier, sealed with a raven pressed into black wax. Her breath caught. The Duke. She turned the envelope over, fingers trembling slightly. She should not open it. She should burn it, throw it into the hearth, forget the man entirely. But she broke the seal. Inside lay a single sentence. "London is lesser without you. R." Her heart stumbled. She read the line again, and again, and again. He had found her. He had written to her. He had chosen her when he could have any woman in England. Her aunt merely sipped her tea. "I knew a man once who wrote letters like that. They are never written idly." Eleanor folded the parchment carefully. "I do not know what he wants." "Men like him never know either," her aunt said gently. "They only know what they cannot ignore." Eleanor had no answer. Her return to London. By the end of the month, her aunt insisted she return to the city. "Running from your life does not prevent it from finding you," she said. "And my dear, London is already whispering about you again." Eleanor fought the urge to groan. "What have they said now?" "That the Duke of Ravenscar showed unprecedented interest in you, that he looked at you as if he had discovered moonlight after living his whole life in shadow." Eleanor flushed crimson. "Aunt, hush. I am old, not blind." Then her aunt leaned close. "And London wonders why you fled after such a moment." Eleanor stiffened. There it was. The one thing she hated most about society. It always demanded explanations. none of them ever kind. But she returned, and London awaited her like a beast hungry for rumor. The collision. The first event she attended upon her return was a garden party at Westbridge Manor. She arrived early, hoping to remain unnoticed. She failed, because the moment she stepped onto the terrace, the crowd shifted like a tide. Conversations paused. Heads turned. And then, a shadow fell over her. Eleanor inhaled sharply. He was there. The Duke, standing only feet away, dressed in deep navy, hair dark against the summer light, his posture effortlessly commanding. He looked as though he had been sculpted from restraint and longing. Their eyes met. It was not a gentle moment. It was collision. Silent, forceful, indéniable. He moved toward her with purpose, cutting through clusters of nobles who bowed and curtsied but received only curt nods in return. When he reached her, he did not bow. He simply said, in a low voice meant only for her, "You left." Eleanor swallowed. "Yes, you left without answering my letter." It did not require one. His jaw tightened. It required everything. Her heart fluttered painfully. She forced her voice to remain steady. "Your Grace." "Do not call me that," he said softly. "Not you." Her breath trembled. She looked away, toward the rose-lined path. "I do not understand what you want from me," Eleanor murmured. He stepped closer, but not enough to touch her. His restraint was a tension in the air. "I want." He paused, the word catching in his throat, a rare vulnerability cracks through his armor. "I want to know why you ran." She could have lied. She could have told him she had family matters, that she had no interest in society events, that she was indifferent to him, but she had never been skilled at deception. So she whispered, "Because I have no place in your world." Silence, then a quiet, deliberate reply. "You do not decide that. I do." Her cheeks flushed with anger and something too messy to name. "I am not a piece on your chessboard, Your Grace." He exhaled slowly, an admission that her words struck him deeper than she realized. "No," he said. "You are the one player I cannot predict." They stood there. Tension braided between them. Then a voice pierced the moment like a cold needle. "Miss Blythe." Lady Worthingdale approached, all false sweetness and sharp eyes. "What a surprise! We feared you had left London forever. Tell us, have you still no husband?" Eleanor stiffened. The Duke's expression changed in an instant. The shift was subtle but lethal, like a storm gathering behind a still horizon. Lady Worthingdale continued, enjoying herself far too much. "It does make one wonder if there is something fundamentally unsuitable about you." Eleanor opened her mouth. She would not be silenced again, not like at the Harrogate ball. But the Duke stepped forward, voice like frost and thunder. "Lady Worthingdale," he said coldly, "you speak with great confidence for someone whose husband avoids her more passionately than her lovers pursue her." A collective gasp. Lady Worthingdale turned purple. Eleanor stared at him, horrified and stunned in equal measure. "Your Grace." He ignored her protest. His gaze stayed locked on the lady he had just verbally eviscerated. "Miss Blythe's suitability," he said, "is beyond your comprehension or your worth." Lady Worthingdale fled. The crowd dispersed, pretending not to stare. Eleanor could scarcely breathe. That was unnecessary. It was the truth. It was cruel. "Cruel is what they have been to you." The words hit her harder than she expected. She stepped back, needing air, needing distance, needing control. He reached out, fingers brushing the slightest edge of her sleeve. Not a grab, not a demand, just a question. "Eleanor." She closed her eyes briefly at the sound of her name on his lips. "I cannot do this," she whispered. "Do what?" "Be the subject of your attention. I cannot afford to be humiliated again." He inhaled sharply. "I will not humiliate you." "You already have." He froze. A wound opened in his gaze, raw, unguarded, like he had not expected her words to land where they did. "I did not intend." "I know," she said softly. "But that does not shield me." She walked past him, forcing her steps to remain steady. He did not stop her this time, but his voice followed her, low and aching. "Then tell me what will." She did not answer. She could not, because she did not yet know that the only thing that would shield her was the very thing she feared most, becoming his. Chapter Troy. The Duke's Secret Regret. The Duke of Ravenscar Adrian Ashford Pierce had been called many things in his lifetime. Ruthless, unyielding, cold as an English winter, but never helpless. Yet helpless was exactly what he felt as he watched Eleanor Blythe walk away from him for the second time, her spine straight, her chin lifted, her dignity intact despite society's claws. He had wounded her. Not with intention. Intention was something he managed with precision, but with presence, with the sheer force of being who he was. And now, standing alone on the terrace of Westbridge Manor, he tasted something bitter, regret. The room he never showed anyone. Later that evening, he returned to Ravenscar House, its grand halls silent, its portraits watching him with centuries of judgment. He walked past his study, past the library, past the drawing room. He stopped in front of a door few servants knew existed. He unlocked it with a small brass key. Inside was a private chamber, a room lit only by the golden sheen of a single oil lamp. The walls were lined with shelves. Not books, not artifacts, items connected to her, Eleanor. The first was a simple folded program from a charity musicale 2 seasons earlier, one she had not attended, but which he had purchased because the cause had mattered to her late mother. Next to it was a small watercolor she had painted at 16, sold quietly at a charity auction for a pitiful sum. He had anonymously outbid every attendee. Another shelf held newspaper clippings, articles mentioning her briefly, never kindly. Stepmother reorganizes household Blythe girl absent from event. No dowry confirmed. The reporters never spoke her name with cruelty, but society filled in the venom between the lines. And on the desk lay a stack of letters, unsent letters. Letters he had written to her during the years. He watched her from a distance long before she knew of his interest. Letters stained with things a duke should not feel for a woman he had no right to touch. He opened one dated a year prior. I saw you walk alone across Grosvenor Square today. You held your head high despite the whispers. I wanted to silence them all, but you looked so determined, so strong, that I stayed back. Forgive me. There is nothing I can offer you that would not endanger us both. He placed it aside. Another. You deserve more than this world gives you. I intend to change that, even if you never know my name. He closed his eyes. The regret tightened in his chest like a band. Why had he remained distant for so long? Why had he waited until the Harrogate ball to speak to her directly? Why had he let her suffer alone, believing herself unworthy? Because he was a coward, not of society, not of scandal, not of political ruin, but of her, of the power she had over him since the moment she asked him for directions in an art gallery years ago, not knowing he was a duke, not caring when he told her, only thanking him with a smile so sincere it had shaken something loose in him. He had wanted her from the start, but wanting Eleanor Blythe was dangerous. The reason he kept his distance. Adrian moved to the desk, pulling open the drawer that housed the one item he regretted more than anything. A small velvet box. Inside lay a ring, a simple gold band with an engraved raven. Not gaudy, not ostentatious, crafted for a woman who valued meaning over spectacle. It was a ring forged 2 years ago. 2 years. He had it commissioned the night he learned about her father's death and her stepmother's theft of her inheritance. That night, he vowed he would marry her, but he never approached her. He never gave her the ring. Because on the same night the ring was forged, he received a letter from his late father's solicitor revealing that the Ravenscar estate was on the brink of collapse due to years of hidden financial mismanagement. He had no right to pull Eleanor into the ruin. He had believed protecting her meant leaving her untouched by the storm of his world. He had been wrong. Protecting her had left her alone, vulnerable, mocked, humiliated. While he rebuilt his estate, while he fought Parliament, while he restored every crumbling piece of his legacy, she had walked alone through rooms that should have bowed for her. And now, she thought his attention was a threat. Because he had made it one, the confession he could never speak. He sank into the leather chair, raking a hand through his hair. She thinks I seek to control her, he muttered into the empty room, when all I want is to give her back everything that was stolen. He imagined telling her, imagined confessing the truth. I have watched you for years. I have loved you longer than is reasonable. I have rebuilt an entire estate with the thought of deserving you. But no, if he told her too soon, it would be coercion. If he told her without earning her trust, it would be pressure. If he told her publicly, society would shred her reputation. He must earn her, not through power, not through intimidation, but through humility, a thing he had never willingly practiced. A shadow in the doorway. Suddenly, he sensed movement. a shadow shifting near the doorway. His steward, Mr. Hale, cleared his throat softly. "Your Grace, forgive the intrusion." Adrian straightened. "What is it?" "A letter just arrived. From Surrey." His heart stopped. He stood. "From her?" "From Miss Blythe's aunt. She requests an urgent meeting." "Why?" Mr. Hale hesitated. "She says it concerns Miss Blythe's welfare and the intentions of a gentleman who has taken an interest in her." Adrian's blood ran ice cold. A rival. Someone had approached Eleanor. Someone who saw what he had seen for years. Her strength, her brilliance, her unspoken fire. He closed the velvet ring box with a decisive snap. Enough waiting. Enough watching. Enough regret. He strode past Hale, his cloak already in hand. "Prepare my carriage." "Yes, Your Grace. Shall I inform—" "No." Adrian's voice darkened. "This matter concerns only me. And Eleanor." He paused at the threshold, glancing back at the secret room, the silent witness to his years of restraint. "When I return," he said quietly, "this room will no longer hold unfinished things." He closed the door behind him. Micro cliffhanger. The Duke is going to Surrey. A rival suitor is emerging. Eleanor is unaware of the storm approaching, or the man willing to burn the world to earn her. Chapter 4. Rising tension. Eleanor Blythe had never expected Surrey to feel like a refuge, but in the quiet mornings, when mist curled over the gardens and the world softened at its edges, she felt almost at peace. Almost. Because letters arrived daily now. Invitations, requests, inquiries from noblemen who had never remembered her name before. It shocked her. It unnerved her. And in quiet moments, she wondered, had the Duke's attention stirred all this? She pushed the thought away. London was fickle. She was simply the subject of temporary curiosity. But one man was not curious. He was consistent. Lord Sebastian Hartwell. The rival enters. Sebastian Hartwell, Viscount of Dresbury, was not like London's other gentlemen. He did not leer. He did not gossip. He did not look at Eleanor as if she were a helpless creature needing rescue or a prize needing conquest. He looked at her with interest, genuine interest. He arrived at her aunt's estate with a leather-bound volume under his arm and sunlight spilling across his hair, a warm bronze that contrasted sharply with the Duke's darker, storm-hewn presence. "Miss Blythe," he greeted with a soft smile, bowing elegantly. "I brought you the book we discussed, the one on Roman architecture." Eleanor blinked. "You remembered?" "Of course," he said. "You have an excellent mind. It deserves stimulation." She flushed, not from the compliment, but from how easy he made everything feel. No tension, no pressure, no risk of heartbreak. He was safe. Her aunt adored him. Her heart did not know what to do with him. A Duke arrives. Late that afternoon, as Eleanor and Sebastian walked the garden path, discussing aqueducts of all things, a sound shattered the calm. Hooves. Fast. Hard. Purposeful. Eleanor turned just as the carriage bearing the Ashford crest thundered through the iron gates. Her breath stilled. The Duke. Adrian descended before the footman could fully open the door, his expression cut from shadow and agitation. His coat was undone, his cravat slightly loosened, as though he had traveled without rest. He looked like a man who had ridden through a storm, and the storm had not yet left him. Sebastian raised a brow. "The Duke of Ravenscar? Here?" Eleanor felt her pulse roar in her ears. I was not expecting—" Eleanor, her name, spoken in that low, rough voice, made her knees weaken. Adrian approached, ignoring Sebastian entirely. His gaze raked over her concern first, frustration second, something unspoken and dangerous last. "You are pale," he murmured. "Are you unwell?" "I am perfectly fine," she managed. "What are you?" He turned sharply to Sebastian. "Viscount." Sebastian offered a polite nod. "Your Grace." Silence crackled. Eleanor could practically hear the clash of two worlds, one warm and golden, one dark and consuming, colliding with her, trapped between them. Polite warfare. Sebastian smiled pleasantly. "Miss Blythe and I were enjoying a discussion on Roman engineering. Quite fascinating, truly. She has remarkable insight." Adrian's jaw flexed. "I am aware of her insight." "You know her well, then?" Sebastian asked casually. "Not well enough," Adrian said, his voice calm. But the meaning pointed. Eleanor stiffened. What was he doing? Why was he acting like this? Sebastian turned to her. Miss Blythe, perhaps tomorrow you might join me at the Surrey Historical Society? I would be honored to introduce you as my guest. Adrian stepped forward, his shadow falling over both of them. She already has plans. She spun toward him, scandalized. I most certainly do not. He looked at her, frustration flashing across his features. We must speak. Later. Her voice trembled with restrained anger. I am occupied. With him? Adrian's voice dropped, soft but edged with steel. Sebastian cleared his throat. Miss Blythe may choose her own company, Your Grace. Adrian turned slowly. And who, may I ask, are you to speak for her? I speak only as a gentleman who respects her autonomy. And I, Adrian replied, eyes narrowing, respect her safety. Eleanor inhaled sharply. My safety is not in question, and my decisions are my own. Both men fell silent, because both men realized something at the same moment. Eleanor Blythe would not be claimed, not controlled, not instructed. If either of them wanted her, they would have to earn her. The private conversation. Sebastian excused himself with a bow, leaving Eleanor and Adrian alone among the roses. The moment the Viscount disappeared inside, Eleanor turned on the Duke. You had no right, she said. Adrian's throat worked as he swallowed the instinct to argue. You are correct. Her anger faltered. She had not expected compliance. I came, he continued, because your aunt wrote to me. She said she feared someone was taking advantage of your vulnerability. My vulnerability? Eleanor laughed softly, bitterly. Is that what I am to everyone? A fragile creature incapable of her own judgments? Adrian's expression cracked pain creeping into the edges. Not to me. She stopped breathing. You are the strongest person I know, he continued, voice lower. But strength does not mean you must walk alone. Her chest tightened. She turned away before he could see the tears gathering. Why are you truly here? I hesitated. For once. Adrian Ashford Pierce, the man who commanded Parliament, who intimidated dukes and kings, seemed at a loss. Finally, he said quietly, because the thought of losing your regard is unbearable. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Your Grace? Adrian, he corrected softly. Say my name. She swallowed hard. Adrian. His eyes closed briefly, the sound of it unraveling something inside him. He stepped closer, but stopped himself just short of touching her. His restraint felt like a plea. I came, he said, voice raw, because I need to know where I stand with you. She turned to him fully, her voice barely above a whisper. You stand too close and too far. He flinched not from the words, but from the truth in them. What must I do? He asked. It was not a demand. It was surrender. Eleanor gazed up at him, this powerful man who could crush empires yet trembled at the thought of losing her. You must let me choose, she said. And you must stop treating me as if I belonged to you. Adrian inhaled sharply. I do not want ownership, he said. I want partnership. Her breath hitched. Not love. Not desire. Not protection. Partnership. It was the last thing she expected to hear from a man like him. Before she could respond, the garden door opened. Her aunt emerged, flustered. Eleanor, a message has arrived from London. Urgent. Adrian stiffened. What message? Her aunt held out the letter. Your stepmother is holding a grand soiree tomorrow night, and she has publicly invited Eleanor. Eleanor's blood iced. Her stepmother never invited her anywhere. Adrian's voice darkened. This is a trap. Her aunt nodded grimly. Everyone in London will be there. Adrian's jaw clenched. Then so will I. Eleanor swallowed. I do not need your rescue. He met her Haza's steady, unwavering. I know, he said softly, but I will be there anyway. Micro cliffhanger. Her stepmother's soiree awaits. The rival is gaining ground. The Duke is losing patience, and Eleanor stands at the center, a woman about to be tested by society, desire, and fate. Chapter 5. Public confrontation. Eleanor Blythe had been humiliated in many rooms, but never, not once, in a room that belonged to her stepmother. Her stepmother preferred to ruin Eleanor quietly, strategically, like pruning a branch she wished would stop growing back. Tonight, however, Clarissa and her mother had orchestrated something different. A spectacle, a performance, a carefully constructed hunt, and Eleanor was the prey. The soiree begins. Lady Montcroy's estate gleamed like a palace dipped in gold. Lanterns flickered across the marble steps, strings of pearls draped over doorways, and footmen in crimson livery bowed as carriages lined the street. Eleanor arrived alone by choice. Her aunt had urged caution. Sebastian had offered to escort her. Even Adrian had insisted he would come for her. But Eleanor needed to face this night with her own spine, not someone else's shadow. She stepped into the grand atrium, the scent of jasmine thick in the air. Conversations dimmed, heads turned. 100 eyes assessed her gown, a soft dove-gray silk with silver embroidery, modest yet luminous. And then the whispers started. Is that Eleanor Blythe? She came alone? I suppose no husband would accompany her, or perhaps no man would dare. Eleanor smoothed her gloves and moved forward with measured steps. She would not shrink, not here, not tonight. Her stepmother, Lady Montcroy, swept toward her with false warmth stitched into every feature. Eleanor, my dear, how gracious of you to accept the invitation. It was difficult to decline, Eleanor replied, given how public the invitation was. A flicker of irritation passed through Lady Montcroy's eyes, quickly masked. Nonsense. I merely wish to reintroduce you to society. Yes, Eleanor said evenly. I imagine you did. But the true reason hung between them. Lady Montcroy wanted witnesses. To Eleanor's loneliness, to her lack of prospects, to her failure. Clarissa glided forward next, wearing a gown of emerald silk that sparkled almost obscenely. Eleanor, she said brightly, try not to wander off to the shadows tonight. Everyone's eyes are on us. Eleanor smiled politely. How fortunate for you, then. Clarissa stiffened, then recovered with a saccharine giggle. We should go to the ballroom. A very special announcement will be made tonight. Eleanor inhaled carefully. A trap, indeed. The Duke arrives. Before Clarissa could continue, a shift rippled across the room like wind bending a field of grass. A presence, a force, a storm contained within a man. Adrian Ashford Pierce, Duke of Ravenscar. He stood framed in the entryway, tall and dark in a tailored black coat, his hair disheveled in a way that made the nearby debutantes visibly swoon. His gaze swept the room until it found her. Eleanor felt the air burst from her chest. He moved toward her with the unhurried confidence of a man accustomed to worlds rearranging for him. Guests parted instinctively, whispers rising. The Duke here? For her? He never attends Montcroy events. Clarissa blanched. Lady Montcroy's fan stilled. Adrian reached Eleanor, bowing with a depth that sent shockwaves through the audience. Miss Blythe, he said, voice low, intimate. You look exceptional tonight. She managed steady composure. Your Grace, I did not expect. I promised I would be here. A faint flush warmed her cheeks. You did. Shall I escort you into the ballroom? He asked. Before she could answer, another voice cut cleanly between them. I believe Miss Blythe has a prior companion. Sebastian Hartwell approached, offering a perfect bow and an easy smile. Miss Blythe, forgive my delay. I wish to acquire refreshments for you. Adrian's jaw clenched. The entire ballroom braced. Sebastian held out his arm. Shall we? Adrian's voice dropped to a dangerous calm. She is not required to choose before she is ready, Sebastian countered. Choice is the essence of respect, Your Grace. Eleanor inhaled sharply. Both of you stop. Silence. Her voice was steady, cool, commanding. If either of you wishes my company tonight, you may ask for it without presuming a claim. I belong to no one. Sebastian bowed his head in acknowledgement. Adrian's expression flickered hurt, admiration, and growing desperation all tangled beneath the surface. She walked toward the ballroom alone, and both men followed at a distance, neither dared close. The humiliation begins. The ballroom glittered with hundreds of candles, casting warm light across gilded moldings and marble columns. A string quartet played a sweeping waltz. Lady Montcroy clinked her wineglass. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention? A toast in honor of my daughters. Plural. Eleanor felt the first cold finger trace her spine. Clarissa stepped forward, smiling as though she had been crowned queen. Tonight, Clarissa announced, I celebrate not only my own prospects, but also the devotion of the gentleman who has expressed sincere interest in joining our family. Gasps. Murmurs. Eleanor's pulse hammered. Clarissa continued, It seems one of London's most promising men has chosen quite unexpectedly to pursue a match with a Blythe girl. Her stepmother's gaze slid toward Eleanor with a sweetness sharp as poison. But alas, not Eleanor. Soft laughter rippled. A blade driven with velvet. Sebastian's face darkened with disgust. Adrian's entire body tensed ready to strike. Lady Montcroy smirked. Sadly, we must acknowledge reality. A young lady without dowry, status, or accomplishments cannot expect. Adrian stepped forward. The room snapped silent. Lady Montcroy, he said, each syllable dipped in frost. I have heard enough. Her smile faltered. Your Grace, I was merely insulting your own stepdaughter publicly, he said. A vulgar display for any hostess. Whispers crackled through the air like sparks. Clarissa rushed in. Your Grace, surely you misunderstand. We are merely stating that Eleanor has no prospects. Adrian's voice sharpened. No protection? No future? Yes, Lady Montcroy said boldly. She is alone. No, Adrian said, voice thunder, soft and devastating. She is not, gasps erupted. Eleanor froze. Her heart stuttered violently. What was he doing? What was he about to say? Adrian's gaze locked onto hers, steady, burning, resolute. Miss Blythe, he said, would you grant me this dance? Ah, murmur rose, confused, scandalized. Eleanor swallowed. Your Grace? Please, he added softly. Allow me the honor. This was not a rescue. This was a declaration, a challenge to everyone who had ever dismissed her. But stepping into his arms in front of all London felt like stepping into fire. She hesitated, and Sebastian appeared at her other side. Miss Blythe, if you would prefer a gentler partner, I would be honored to take your hand. 2 men, 2 futures, 2 entirely different kinds of risk. The ballroom held its breath. Eleanor stood straighter. I will dance, she said, but I will choose my partner. Adrian's muscles tensed. Sebastian waited with quiet confidence. Eleanor inhaled and placed her hand into Adrian's. A cry went through the room. Adrian bowed not as a duke, but as a man grateful. He pulled her into the waltz, his hand firm at her back, his eyes locked on hers with a depth that made her breath falter. The music swelled. They moved as if the world had narrowed to the space between their bodies. You astonish me, he murmured. You infuriate me, she whispered. A faint grin touched his lips. We are well matched then. For a moment, just a moment, it felt like belonging. But then, as they turned, Eleanor saw something. Her stepmother, smiling, a terrible, triumphant smile. And Eleanor understood. The humiliation was not over. It was only beginning. False accusation. When the dance ended, Lady Montcroy stepped forward, voice carrying over the music. My, she said. How surprising to see the Duke so taken with Eleanor. But tell me, Your Grace. She tilted her head. Are your intentions honorable? Eleanor's stomach dropped. The room erupted into whispers. This question, public pointed, was a dagger. If Adrian claimed interest, a scandal would erupt. If he denied it, Eleanor would be ruined. Sebastian surged forward. Lady Montcroy, this line of questioning is shameful. Adrian lifted a hand, silencing everyone. He looked at Eleanor, really looked at her, with longing, regret, fear, and something powerful enough to destroy reputations. My intentions, he said softly, will be clear soon enough. Lady Montcroy smiled triumphantly. So, nothing honorable then? No, Adrian said, voice steady, dangerous, unyielding. Nothing common either. The room trembled. Eleanor's breath hitched. Lady Montcroy's smile vanished. Adrian stepped toward Eleanor, bowing his head not to the crowd, but to her. Forgive me, he whispered, for all of it. And then he walked out, leaving rumors, chaos, and a stunned silence behind him. Micro cliffhanger. Society smells scandal. The Duke has left abruptly. Eleanor's humiliation has been twisted into a weapon. And the next move will change everything. Because Adrian is done hiding. Chapter 6. Revelation of Truth. Eleanor did not sleep that night. How could she? The soiree had ended in chaos, whispers slicing through the ballroom like blades, her stepmother triumphant, Clarissa furious, and both Sebastian and the Duke storming in opposite directions, like rival storms. And Eleanor stood at the center, exposed, confused, burning with humiliation she refused to cry over. By sunrise, she made a decision. She would confront Adrian Ashford Pierce, Not as a frightened girl, not as a woman society ridiculed, but as someone who refused to be a pawn in any man's game. So she traveled to Ravenscar House. Alone. The Duke's withdrawal. The butler hesitated at the grand entrance, discomfort in his eyes. Miss Blythe. His Grace has given strict instructions not to be disturbed. Eleanor straightened her spine. I am not here to disturb him. I am here to demand clarity. The butler's eyes widened slightly. Then, in a quiet voice of someone who understood far too well what it meant to be powerless in society, he whispered, He is in the East Wing, the private study. No one was allowed in the East Wing, except her. She walked through silent corridors lined with portraits of ancient Ashfords, men carved in power, women carved in ice. She felt them judging her, weighing her, deciding whether she belonged in their world. Finally, she reached the heavy oak door. She did not knock. She entered. The crack in his armor? The study was dimly lit, curtains drawn. A fire burned low in the hearth, casting the room in amber shadows. And there he was. Adrian stood before the fireplace, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled, hands braced on the mantel as though holding up the earth itself. His hair was disheveled, his cravat loosened, and his breath roughened as if he had not slept either. When he heard her step, he turned sharply. Eleanor. Her breath caught at the sound of her name, raw, relieved, aching. I told your butler I needed answers, she said. He exhaled sharply. Then you will have them. But something about him was wrong. He looked devastated, fractured, like a man whose worst fear had already happened. She approached cautiously. What occurred last night after you left the soirée? His jaw tightened. I lost control. That is what occurred. No, she pressed. You left me there, to face their whispers, their accusations, their mockery. He flinched, actually flinched. I know. And it is unforgivable. Eleanor's voice trembled not with weakness, but anger. Why did you speak as you did? Why make statements that imply attachment? Or worse, ownership? He looked directly at her then, and something in him cracked open. Because, he said quietly, I have cared for you longer than you could ever imagine. Her breath caught. You hardly know me. You are wrong. He whispered. The words trembled. His hands did too. Then he crossed the room, not touching her, but close enough that she felt the heat radiating off him. I know you, he said, voice deep and uneven, because I have watched you endure a cruelty no woman deserves, because I saw the strength you hide behind quiet dignity, because your presence unsettles me in ways nothing else has. Eleanor swallowed hard. Then why hide it? Adrian gave a broken laugh. Because I am a coward where you are concerned. She stared. The Duke of Ravenscar. A coward? Impossible. He turned away, unable to withstand her gaze. There are things you do not know, things I have kept from you, about my estate, my family, my failures. I do not require perfection, she said softly. No, he murmured. But you deserve the truth. He walked to a small wooden drawer and removed a velvet box. Eleanor felt her knees weaken. I had this made 2 years ago, he said. Her heart pounded. Why? Because I intended to propose. She staggered back. What? I intended to ask for your hand the night your father died. His voice broke. But that same night, I learned my estate was collapsing. Everything my family built was sinking under hidden debts. I could not offer you security. I could not even offer you comfort. He closed the box. I could only offer ruin. Eleanor felt the air leave her lungs. So you stayed away? Yes. His voice was a strained whisper. Not because I did not want you, but because I refused to pull you into the ashes of my name. She stared at him, shaken, furious, heart-wrenched all at once. You let me believe I was unworthy, she said. You let me face ridicule alone. You hid your intentions, your letters, your feelings. And every moment has haunted me. He turned toward her completely. No mask. No armor, no duke, just a man. I rebuilt every part of Ravenscar for one reason, he said, so I could someday stand before you and say, I am ready now. I can protect you. I can honor you. Her throat tightened painfully. Adrian, he stepped closer, just one step. One question, he said, voice low. At the soirée, when you chose me for the dance, was it obligation or desire? Eleanor's breath trembled. She could lie. She could protect herself. But she lifted her chin. "It was desire," she said, "and it terrified me." His eyes darkened with something dangerous, beautiful, desperate. "Eleanor," he whispered, "I will never let you be humiliated again." Before she could respond, the door burst open. Sebastian Hartwell, his face storm dark, breath heaving. "Miss Blythe, thank God. I feared he—" He stopped, saw them, saw the velvet box, saw the truth. A silence heavier than stone fell. Sebastian's jaw clenched. "So, this is the truth you hid." Adrian straightened. "Hartwell." "No." Sebastian's voice cut through the room like a blade. "You do not get to speak." He turned to Eleanor, eyes filled not with anger toward her, but with heartbreak. "You deserve someone who is honest with you, someone who chooses you without hesitation, someone who does not wait for years, collecting you like a secret." Adrian's fists tightened. Sebastian bowed to her, a reverent, wounded gesture. "I offer you a partnership," he said softly. "A life built on transparency, respect, and choice. I will not force your hand now, but I will ask for it tomorrow." Eleanor's heart pounded. Sebastian left. Adrian turned to her, anguish etched into every line. "You do not owe me anything," he whispered. "But I am begging, do not give up on us before we begin." Eleanor stared at both doors, one leading to a life of safety, one to a life of fire. She exhaled shakily. "I need time," she said. Adrian nodded once, a king bowing to the one woman who could break him. "As much as you need," he whispered. But time was the one thing none of them truly had. Micro cliffhanger. The rival has declared his offer. The Duke has revealed his heart. Eleanor must choose a path that may shatter one man and remake another. Chapter 7. The Rival's Offer. Eleanor Blythe walked through London the next morning as though navigating the ruins of a battlefield. Because she was. Inside her chest lay shattered pieces of two worlds. Two men, two futures, two versions of who she could become. Sebastian Hartwell had left Ravenscar House last night with a vow burning in his eyes. "I will ask for your hand tomorrow." And Adrian had stood in the firelight, velvet ring box in hand, looking at her as though she was the only thing he had rebuilt his entire universe for. Eleanor had never been wanted like this, not by anyone. And suddenly, she was wanted by two men who would shape her fate in entirely different ways. Sebastian makes his move. He arrived precisely at noon. No fanfare, no arrogance, only sincerity. Eleanor's aunt welcomed him in, her expression unreadable but warm. "Lord Hartwell, Miss Blythe is in the conservatory." Eleanor stood among the lemon trees, sunlight scattering across her dress. The moment Sebastian entered, his steps softened like a man approaching sacred ground. "Miss Blythe," he said gently, "may I speak with you?" She nodded. He approached but maintained respectful distance. Always respectful. Adrian approached like a storm. Sebastian approached like a scholar, approaching a rare piece of art carefully, reverently. "I owe you honesty," he said. "More than the Duke ever gave you." Eleanor's chest tightened. "Sebastian!" "No," he interrupted softly. "Let me speak first." He exhaled, steadying himself. "When I first met you in Surrey, I admired your mind, your curiosity, your refusal to pretend to be smaller than you are." Her breath caught. He stepped closer, slow, deliberate. "And as I spent time in your presence, admiration became something deeper, something I cannot ignore." She lowered her eyes. "Sebastian, you are a good man." "Then allow me to prove it," he said, voice warm with hope. "Allow me to show you a life not built on shadows, secrets, or power struggles. A life built on mutual respect." Eleanor's heart ached. "You deserve a world where your voice is not only heard," he continued, "but valued. You deserve someone who never hesitates to choose you." Her throat tightened. Sebastian reached into his coat, not for a ring, but for a simple folded document. "I have secured patronage for a school for young women," he said softly. "A school you described, once the one you dreamed of, where girls like yourself could be educated, empowered, and protected from the cruelties of society." Eleanor's breath stilled. "You remembered that?" "I remember everything you say," he murmured. "Because everything you say matters." Tears burned behind her lashes. He extended the document to her. "I want you to lead it, build it, run it with full authority." "Sebastian!" Her voice trembled. "This is a proposal," he finished quietly. Not of marriage yet, though that too I will ask for if you allow it, but a proposal of partnership, of equality, of freedom. A tear fell before she could stop it. Sebastian reached up but didn't touch her. May I? She nodded. He brushed the tear away with a tenderness that made her knees weaken. Eleanor Blythe, he whispered. Choose me not because I offer safety, but because I offer a life where you never have to shrink again. Before she could speak, the door opened sharply. Of course. Adrian. When fire meets shadow. The Duke strode into the conservatory with barely restrained fury simmering beneath his immaculate composure. Lord Hartwell, Adrian said coolly. You seem to arrive everywhere I am not. Sebastian smiled thinly. Perhaps because Miss Blythe actually invites me. Adrian's jaw clenched a subtle, lethal warning. We both know you came to stake a claim, and we both know you came to prevent one. Eleanor stepped between them. Enough. Both men fell silent. Sebastian, she said gently, your offer is generous beyond anything I imagined. Truly, Sebastian's expression softened. It was not generosity. It was belief. Her breath trembled, but she turned to Adrian next, and what she saw nearly unmade her. The Duke, the man who terrified Parliament, who commanded armies of influence, who rebuilt empires, looked almost afraid. Not of Sebastian, of her. The Duke's plea. Adrian stepped forward, slower than usual, as though the very air between them had turned fragile. What did he offer you? He asked quietly. Choice, she said. Adrian exhaled as though struck. And what would I offer you, Eleanor? She held his gaze. That is what I need to know. A storm flickered behind his eyes. He stepped closer, too close, but stopped his hands at his sides, as if physically restraining himself from touching her. I cannot offer safety, he said softly. I cannot offer a life free from scrutiny. I cannot offer peace. Sebastian smirked faintly. A ringing endorsement. But Adrian's voice deepened, steadied. I can offer devotion. I can offer a partnership forged in fire, not comfort. I can offer a life in which you will never walk alone again, not in humiliation, not in triumph, not in anything. His eyes locked onto hers. When society strikes you, I will strike back. When they belittle you, I will raise you. When they doubt you, I will wager my entire name to prove them wrong. Eleanor's heart pounded. And when you dream, he whispered, I will build the world that lets your dreams live. Even Sebastian fell silent at that. Her breath trembled. Adrian, he swallowed hard. I am not the gentle choice. I am not the easy one, but I am yours if you want me. Sebastian stepped forward. And I am yours even if you do not want me yet. Eleanor felt the room closing in. Two men, two futures, two halves of her own heart. Her decision, or not. Eleanor stepped back, raising both hands. I cannot choose either of you, she said breathlessly. Not today. Not like this. Silence. Sebastian bowed his head with grace. I understand. Adrian exhaled, pain crossing his features. Tell us what you need. She steadied her voice. I need to build something for myself before I become part of anyone else's world. Sebastian nodded. The school. Adrian's eyes softened. Whatever you wish to build, I will support it. Eleanor inhaled. I need space and time. Sebastian placed the document on the table. My offer stands with or without marriage. Adrian bowed, a gesture of surrender. And so does mine. Both men turned to leave. But at the door, Sebastian paused. One last thing, Miss Blythe, he said gently. London will not forgive you for making a choice later than they expect. Prepare yourself, Adrian added quietly. And know this. Whichever path you choose, I will honor it. But I will not stop fighting for you. They left her, alone in the conservatory, surrounded by lemon trees, breathing air that suddenly felt too heavy. She looked at the proposal. She looked at her shaking hands. She looked at the door where both men had disappeared and whispered, what am I supposed to do with a heart that wants two different kinds of futures? Micro cliffhanger. Eleanor stands at a crossroads. Sebastian offers a safe empire built of intellect and respect. Adrian offers a dangerous kingdom built of passion and devotion. But London is about to erupt, and her stepmother is about to strike again. Chapter 8. Heroes Humbling. The morning after Sebastian and Adrian each laid their hearts at Eleanor's feet, London awoke with a hunger for scandal. Every drawing room hummed. Every tea table vibrated. Every titled mouth whispered the same name, Eleanor Blythe. Some said she had ensnared the Duke. Others said she was engaged to the Viscount. A few insisted she was playing both men to elevate her ruined family name. And her stepmother, Lady Montcroy, fanned every flame. By noon, Eleanor's reputation was no longer merely bruised. It was under assault, which is why Adrian Ashford Pierce, Duke of Ravenscar, did something no one expected. Least of all, Eleanor. He humbled himself before society, publicly, completely, dangerously. The ruining article. It began with a newspaper. Eleanor found it lying on her aunt's breakfast table, the print still smelling of fresh ink. The headline stole her breath. Miss Blythe's unseemly entanglement. 2 suitors. 1 scandal. Her heart froze. She scanned the article, horror clawing up her throat. Invented conversations, twisted facts, cruel insinuations about her modesty, her intentions, her worth. Then came the final dagger. Sources close to Lady Montcroy confirmed that Miss Blythe sought to manipulate both the Duke and Lord Hartwell to secure financial stability. Eleanor dropped the paper. Her aunt crossed the room instantly, gripping her shoulders. "Eleanor, look at me. This can be undone. This can still be undone." "No," Eleanor whispered, voice cracking. This is exactly what she wanted. A carriage thundered to a stop outside. Eleanor's chest tightened. "Who is?" The door burst open. Adrian. He looked like a man who had ridden straight from hell. Hair wind-tossed, cravat undone, eyes burning with fury, and something far more dangerous. Fear. He stopped only when he saw her face. Pale, shaking, broken but trying not to show it. "Eleanor." His voice was raw. "I came the moment I read it." She stepped back. "You should not be here. I must be here." Her throat tightened. "If anyone sees you, it will confirm everything they wrote." "Let them see," he growled. "I will not let them destroy you again." He reached for her but stopped himself, fingers curling at his sides. "Who did this?" "My stepmother," she whispered. "Or someone she paid." Adrian's face darkened with lethal certainty. "I will ruin her." "No," Eleanor said sharply. "If you do, they will only say, 'I am your weakness.'" "You are," he said without hesitation. The words nearly shattered her. "You need to leave," she whispered. "Please, Adrian." "No." She clenched her jaw. "You do not own me." "I know," he breathed. "That is why I'm here to show them I don't." Before she could answer, her aunt rushed into the room. "Eleanor, my dear, they've printed an afternoon edition." She held up a second paper, a different headline. Eleanor's blood ran cold. Duke of Ravenscar. To address Miss Blythe rumors today. Public statement expected at Whitehall. Eleanor whipped toward Adrian, eyes wide. "No, no, absolutely not." He met her gaze without flinching. "Yes, Whitehall. The fall of a duke." By the time Adrian arrived at Whitehall, half of London had gathered members of Parliament, socialites, journalists, even foreign envoys. They expected a denial. They expected him to protect his reputation. They expected him to distance himself from the girl they were tearing apart. What they did not expect was the Duke of Ravenscar standing before them, unguarded, undone, and speaking the truth. "Thank you for gathering," he began. His voice carried the sharp command of a military man, yet something softer threaded beneath it. The crowd leaned in. "There has been talk," Adrian continued, "regarding Miss Eleanor Blythe, talk of impropriety, manipulation, scandal, murmurs, snickers." He did not waver, "and I am here to say that every word printed about her is a lie." Gasps rippled. "She is the most honorable woman I know," he said, voice rising. "If society mocks her, it reveals more of society's corruption than her own." The reporters scribbled furiously. "She has suffered injustices that would have broken someone weaker," he continued. "But not her. She endures. She rises. She stands with dignity even when those closest to her betray her." Lady Montcroy was somewhere in the crowd, her face blanching. Adrian looked directly at the press and delivered a blow no one saw coming. "As for myself," he said, "it is true that I hold affection for Miss Blythe." A roar went through the crowd. Adrian raised his voice above it, "But let it be known, whatever feelings I possess are my burden, not hers. She has never encouraged me. She has never depended on me. She owes me nothing. Journalists shouted questions. Are you admitting pursuit? Is Miss Blythe your intended? Did Lord Hartwell challenge your claim? Adrian lifted a hand. I claim nothing, he said simply. I am the one at fault. Not her. Silence flooded the square. He had done what no duke should ever do. He humbled himself, publicly, irreversibly. And if any further slander is published, he concluded, I will personally bring suit against the responsible parties. He stepped back. The crowd was stunned, shocked, awed. In a single moment, the most powerful man in London had killed the scandal, not by silencing his enemies, but by sacrificing his pride. Eleanor's reaction. When Adrian returned to Eleanor's home, she was waiting in the garden, hands pressed to her chest. Why did you do that? She whispered. Because you deserved protection, he said, and I needed to earn your trust. You ruined your reputation. I would ruin myself 1,000 times before allowing them to harm you. She shook her head, voice trembling. You cannot keep doing this. You cannot keep bleeding for me. He stepped closer slowly, reverently, until they shared breath. I will bleed, he said, until you no longer fear me. Tears slipped down her cheeks. And when you are ready, he added softly, I will ask something of you. Something I should have asked years ago. Her heart stopped. What? But he only shook his head. Not yet. You are not prepared. Chapter 10. Slow burn resolution. The ballroom held its breath. 2 men stood before Eleanor, one forged in fire, one shaped in sunlight, and the entire weight of London teetered on the edge of her decision. Adrian's eyes were dark with devotion and fear. Sebastian's were warm with hope and dignity. But the room, the whispers, the expectations, none of that mattered. Eleanor Blythe had found her voice, and she would use it. She turned first to Sebastian. His expression did not falter. He smiled, as though already preparing to accept whatever she chose. Lord Hartwell, she said softly, you offered me respect when the world offered me ridicule. You believed in my dreams when I barely dared to speak them aloud. He bowed his head. It was an honor, and you are the kind of man any woman would be fortunate to walk beside. A flicker of sadness haunted his eyes. But, Eleanor breathed, steadying herself, the life you offer is one of clarity, reason, stability. And I have learned something about myself. Sebastian's voice was gentle. That you do not wish for stability. I wish for it, she said honestly, but I do not belong in it. I am not meant for a quiet life, Sebastian. My heart. She hesitated, then lifted her chin. My heart does not burn gently. Sebastian closed his eyes for a brief moment. When he reopened them, there was no anger, no bitterness, only acceptance. Then it seems, he said quietly, you are choosing the fire. She nodded. Then I wish you joy, Miss Blythe, he said, bowing deeply. The kind of joy you fought so hard to reclaim. If you ever need an ally or a friend or a champion in Parliament, my door is always open. Eleanor's throat tightened. You are a better man than society deserves. And you, he said with a soft smile, are exactly the woman the Duke deserves if he can prove himself worthy. He stepped back into the crowd, and the world shifted. The man she chooses. Adrian did not move. He looked as though one wrong touch might shatter him. Eleanor, he whispered, if you choose me out of obligation, out of gratitude for my defense, I will refuse you. The room gasped. Eleanor stepped closer. I do not choose you for what you did, she said. I choose you for what you are. His breath trembled. You are flawed, she continued. Impossibly stubborn, frighteningly intense, terrible at expressing yourself. And you make everything more difficult than it needs to be. A flash of shock touched his features, then relief, then something like a smile. But, she whispered, you also see me, you challenge me, you push me to stand, to speak, to demand the world recognize what I once hid. He swallowed hard. And you, she added, voice softening, burn for me, in ways that terrify and comfort me all at once. She reached for his hand. He flinched, not away, but as though afraid he might be dreaming. Adrian, she said quietly, I choose the fire. He closed his eyes as though absorbing the words into every part of him. When he opened them again, the Duke was gone. Only the man remained. Then, he said, voice ragged, let me prove myself worthy of the woman who just conquered London. His hand rose slowly, reverently. Let me be the partner you demanded. Let me rebuild my world around you, not because you need it, but because I cannot imagine living in one where you are not the center. Her breath hitched. The crowd dissolved. The candlelight flickered. She whispered, "Then what you asked before, ask it again." Adrian stepped closer until her heartbeat matched his. "Eleanor Blythe." He exhaled, trembling. "Will you marry me?" She didn't answer with words at first. She placed her hand over his heart, steady, fierce, unafraid. "Yes," she breathed, "but on my terms." Shock, awe, and devotion struck him all at once. "Anything." She raised her chin. "First," she said, "we marry in secret. Not because I am ashamed, but because I refuse to give London another spectacle." He nodded. "Agreed." "Second," she continued, "I will not abandon the school. I will not give up my dreams to become a silent duchess in your grand halls." "Eleanor," he whispered, "I would never ask you to diminish yourself." "And third," she finished, "you do not get to be my shield." His brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" She held his gaze with iron steadiness. "I do not want a man who fights my battles for me. I want a man who stands beside me while I fight them myself." A long silence. Then, something beautiful happened. Adrian bowed his head, not in defeat, in reverence. "Then I vow," he said, "to walk beside you, equal, always." Her eyes glistened. She nodded. "Then yes," she whispered again, "I will marry you." A secret wedding, under a quiet sky. The city knew nothing. Her stepmother suspected nothing. Sebastian said nothing. And under the cloak of dawn, in a small private chapel hidden behind the Ravenscar estate, Eleanor Blythe and Adrian Ashford Pierce became husband and wife. No audience, no scandal, no grandeur, just two people, standing close enough for their breaths to mingle, speaking vows that belonged to no one but them. Eleanor's voice trembled only once, but Adrian's hand steadied hers. Adrian's voice broke once, but Eleanor's thumb brushed a tear no one else would ever see. And when the officiant pronounced them bound, Adrian whispered against her hand, "You have given me the one thing I never deserved hope." She looked up at him. "You are not unworthy of love," she said. "You were simply waiting for the right woman to demand it of you." His breath caught, their hands intertwined. No kiss, not yet. Not until the moment belonged entirely to them. But the truth was undeniable. Eleanor Blythe was no longer the girl society mocked. She was the Duke's secret wife. And soon, very soon, London would learn the truth. Not because she was forced to reveal it, but because she would choose the moment herself. And when she did, the world would kneel. Micro cliffhanger. Their marriage is sealed. Their bond forged. But the world still believes Eleanor is alone, and her enemies are preparing their final strike. Now comes the reckoning, and the world-shaking reveal. Chapter 11, Epilogue. 3 months later, London woke to a headline that would rewrite its own history. The Duchess of Ravenscar revealed. The secret marriage that shakes the empire. But that revelation did not begin in a ballroom, nor in Parliament, nor through scandal whispered behind gloved hands. It began in a small classroom, the school that changed everything. Eleanor Blythe, now Eleanor Ashford Pierce, Duchess of Ravenscar, stood before a group of 16 young girls seated in neat rows. Their eyes shone with hope, fear, curiosity, the same emotions she once carried at their age. The school was small for now, just 3 rooms, a handful of instructors, and a garden where the girls grew herbs and confidence. But it was hers, built with Sebastian's patronage, protected with Adrian's power, powered by her own vision. Eleanor placed a book on the table. "Who can tell me what courage truly means?" A timid hand rose. "Your Grace?" Eleanor smiled gently. "You may call me Mrs. Pierce in class." The girl swallowed, then said, "Courage is doing what is right even when you are afraid." "Very good," Eleanor said softly. "And it is also speaking even when your voice shakes. It is standing even when the world tries to push you down." The girls nodded, absorbing every word. The door creaked open behind her. Eleanor did not need to turn. She felt him. Adrian leaned against the doorway, his expression softened by a smile that only appeared when he looked at her. He waited patiently until the lesson was done. When the girls filed out, chattering excitedly, Eleanor crossed to him. "You're late," she teased. "I had enemies to terrify," he said casually. A duke's work is never done. She laughed softly. Is Parliament still demanding explanations? They are demanding many things, he murmured, reaching to brush a strand of hair from her cheek. But they will receive only what we choose to give. She took his hand. And what do we choose? He kissed her palm. Truth. On our terms. The public reveal. Later that afternoon, they stood side by side at the gates of Ravenscar House. A cluster of reporters waited beyond the iron bars. Some were respectful. Most were ravenous. All were curious. Eleanor inhaled deeply. Adrian squeezed her hand. Are you ready? No, she whispered. Are you? No. He smiled. But with you, I can be anything. They stepped forward together. A reporter called out, Your Grace, is it true you married in secret? Adrian didn't answer. Eleanor did. Yes, she said, her voice steady and calm. Gasps spread through the crowd. Another shouted, Why the secrecy? Eleanor held Adrian's gaze, then turned back to the crowd. Because love deserves quiet before it survives the noise. Murmurs of surprise, then awe. And, she added, because there was a time I needed to build myself before becoming anyone's duchess. Adrian's eyes warmed with fierce pride. Do you regret it? Someone asked. Eleanor smiled. I regret only that the world will never understand how a woman and a man can build something powerful without spectacle. She slipped her arm through Adrian's. And now, she finished, we have decided the time for hiding is over. The questions exploded, but the two of them simply walked inside, unrushed, unbothered, unbroken, together, their private world. That evening, in the quiet glow of their private study, Eleanor curled beside Adrian on the chaise. You were remarkable today, he said softly. Zoe, were you? He shook his head. I was terrified. Of what? That the world would try to take you from me. Eleanor touched his cheek. No one can take what was freely chosen. He leaned into her touch. I will spend the rest of my days proving worthy of that choice. You already are. He pulled her into his arms. Slowly, reverently, as though she were something holy he had been entrusted with. Eleanor, he whispered against her temple. You are the one miracle I never believed I would live to see. She smiled, eyes glistening. Adrian, you are the one man I refused to believe I could ever trust. And now? She met his gaze, tender, fierce, entirely hers. Now, she whispered, you are my equal, my partner, my home. He kissed her not with hunger, but with a love built on storms survived, truths revealed, and choices made freely. The final quotes. Her words, strength is not found in the battles we win alone, but in the hands we choose to hold while we rise. His words, you saved me, Eleanor, not from ruin, but from becoming a man unworthy of loving you. And so the story ended, not with a ball, not with a scandal, but with two hearts rebuilt and a world finally forced to recognize the woman it once tried to break. Eleanor Blythe, the Duchess who rose from ashes and taught a duke how to kneel with grace.